On this day in history, we remember the remarkable individuals who shaped our world. Welcome to Who Died Today in History, where we honor their legacies. From artists to leaders, their impact lives on. If you find their stories meaningful, like, subscribe, and hit the bell to stay connected.
Thank you to all our amazing channel members for your generous support.
Melvin Van Peebles, often hailed as the Godfather of modern black cinema, passed away on September 21, 2021, at the age of 89 from natural causes. His death marked the end of a trailblazing life that reshaped American film, music, and theater. Van Peebles' passing reflected not only the inevitability of time, but also the challenges of an era in which marginalized voices fought for visibility and artistic freedom. His career had been defined by breaking barriers, and in many ways, his death became a moment to recognize how profoundly he had shifted the trajectory of storytelling for generations to come. Best known for his groundbreaking 1971 film Sweetback's Baadasssss song, Van Peebles defied Hollywood norms by independently financing, directing, writing, and even scoring the film. The story of a black man's resistance to systemic oppression resonated deeply with audiences during the civil rights era. His death, 50 years later, reminded the world of the continued importance of representation and the enduring power of art as protest. In an age when conversations about racial justice and creative ownership remained urgent, his departure underscored how his struggles and triumphs had paved the way for countless others. The immediate consequence of his passing was an outpouring of tributes from filmmakers, actors, and cultural commentators who recognized his influence. His son, actor-director Mario Van Peebles, carried forward his father's legacy, ensuring that Melvin's pioneering vision would remain part of the cinematic landscape. For the Black independent film movement, his death became a rallying point, a reminder of how much had been achieved and how much work remained to be done. Van Peebles' legend was amplified by his death, not diminished. His fearless creativity and refusal to conform became symbolic of artistic integrity itself. He revealed that cinema could be both deeply personal and politically radical, and this ethos continues to inspire contemporary filmmakers. Ultimately, Van Peebles' passing reflects humanity's broader relationship with mortality and memory. While life is finite, the cultural imprints we leave can achieve a form of immortality. We immortalize figures like him not only through retrospectives and biographies, but also through the ongoing artistic revolutions they spark. In this way, Melvin Van Peebles lives on. Every time a filmmaker dares to challenge convention, tell their own story, or create without compromise. Florence Griffith Joyner, affectionately known as Flo-Jo, died suddenly on September 21, 1998, at the age of just 38. She passed away in her sleep at home in Mission Viejo, California, due to an epileptic seizure. The shock of her death reverberated around the world, not only because she was so young, but because she had embodied an almost superhuman vitality during her career. Her sudden passing reflected the fragility of life, reminding the public that even icons of strength and beauty are subject to the unpredictability of mortality. Joyner had been one of the brightest stars of the 1988 Seoul Olympics, where she captured 3 gold medals and 1 silver while breaking records in the 100 and 200-meter sprints, times that still stand today. Her flamboyant style, with bold outfits and long decorated nails, made her a global icon, blurring the line between athlete and celebrity. When she died, questions immediately resurfaced about her health, particularly amid lingering suspicions, though never substantiated, about performance-enhancing drugs in track and field during that era. These discussions revealed the cultural anxieties of the late 20th century, the tension between celebrating athletic achievement and confronting the growing shadow of doping scandals. The immediate consequence of her death was an outpouring of grief and commemoration. Fans, fellow athletes, and public figures mourned not just her competitive greatness, but her role as a barrier breaker for women in sports. She became a symbol of possibility for young athletes, especially women of color, who saw in her both athletic excellence and unapologetic individuality. Her untimely passing froze her legacy in time, amplifying her legend as someone whose brilliance burned intensely but briefly. In death, Joyner's influence grew even larger. Her records remain untouched decades later, and her fashion-forward persona continues to inspire athletes who see performance as both physical and artistic. She is immortalized through foundations in her name, retrospectives on women's athletics, and the continued reverence for her Olympic triumphs. Ultimately, Joyner's death reflects humanity's paradoxical relationship with mortality. We mourn the loss of life cut short, but also elevate the memory of those who seemed larger than life. Figures like Flo-Jo remind us that while the body is finite, the spirit and the inspiration it provides can live on indefinitely through art, memory, and collective admiration. Walter Brennan, one of Hollywood's most beloved character actors, passed away on September 21, 1974, at the age of 80. His death was the result of emphysema, a condition tied to his years of heavy smoking. Brennan's passing reflected not only the personal toll of an era when cigarette use was culturally widespread and often glamorized, but also the generational shift in Hollywood as the Golden Age stars who had defined mid-20th century cinema began to fade from the spotlight. Brennan's career had been extraordinary. He became the first actor to win 3 Academy Awards for Best Supporting Actor, a record that still stands. Known for his gruff voice, distinctive limp, and ability to embody everything from cantankerous sidekicks to kindly patriarchs, Brennan carved out a niche that resonated deeply with audiences. His death marked the end of an era when such character actors were central to Hollywood storytelling, supporting leads with memorable performances that gave films emotional weight and authenticity. The immediate consequence of his passing was a wave of reflection on his unparalleled career. For many, Brennan represented a slice of Americana, his roles often rooted in westerns and frontier narratives that spoke to values of resilience, loyalty, and tradition. In the 1970s, as America wrestled with cultural upheaval and disillusionment after Vietnam and Watergate, Brennan's death carried symbolic weight. He had personified a simpler, perhaps idealized vision of the American past, one that felt increasingly distant in an era of change. Brennan's legend has only amplified since his passing. He remains a touchstone for discussions about the value of supporting actors and the importance of versatility in film. His performances continue to be studied by film historians and cherished by fans of classic cinema. Beyond his roles, his presence helped solidify the enduring popularity of westerns, ensuring his influence reached far beyond his lifetime. His death underscores humanity's deep need to hold on to memory through the figures who shaped cultural identity. We immortalize Brennan not just in the films he left behind, but also in the larger myth of Hollywood's golden age, where every character, no matter how small, mattered. In this sense, his passing reminds us that while mortality claims the body, art secures a form of immortality, allowing figures like Brennan to live on in collective memory and cinematic history. Jackie Stallone, the matriarch of the Stallone family and a colorful public figure in her own right, passed away on September 21, 2020, at the age of 98. Her death was from natural causes, a quiet, close to a life lived in vibrant defiance of convention. Living nearly a century, she witnessed profound cultural and social transformations, and her longevity itself became part of her legacy, an emblem of resilience in a world defined by change. Known to many primarily as the mother of actor Sylvester Stallone, Jackie was more than a supporting figure in a famous family. She carved her own eccentric and sometimes controversial path as an astrologer, psychic, wrestling promoter, and fitness advocate. Her death, occurring during a global pandemic, resonated differently for audiences in 2020. She represented a generation that had endured wars, depressions, and cultural upheavals, a reminder of the mortality of even the most enduring personalities. The immediate consequence of her passing was both familial and cultural. For the Stallone family, it marked the loss of a matriarch whose influence and unconventional personality had shaped their lives. For the public, her death sparked a re-evaluation of her unique career and persona. She was never a traditional Hollywood figure. Instead, she thrived on reinvention, embracing astrology and psychic arts at a time when such interests were often marginalized, and even promoting women's professional wrestling in the 1980s, a bold move reflecting shifting attitudes about female empowerment and spectacle. Her passing amplified her legend in an unexpected way. Jackie Stallone had always been known for her eccentricity, and in death, her persona became a symbol of individuality and self-expression. While she never achieved fame on the scale of her son, her refusal to be confined by societal expectations ensured that she remained a figure of fascination. In an age increasingly celebrating authenticity and boldness, her life gained renewed appreciation. Jackie Stallone's story reveals humanity's complex relationship with mortality and memory. We are drawn not only to figures who achieve traditional greatness, but also to those who embody uniqueness and defiance. She is remembered in family tributes, in popular culture references, and in the curious corners of entertainment history she helped shape. Her legacy demonstrates that immortality comes in many forms, not always through power or art, but sometimes through sheer personality, reminding us that memory itself is a canvas for individuality. Michael Lonsdale, the Franco-British actor known for his commanding presence and nuanced performances, passed away on September 21, 2020, at the age of 89 in his Paris home. His death was from natural causes, marking the end of a long life devoted to cinema, theater, and art. Unlike some stars who fade from public consciousness, Lonsdale's death became a moment of reflection on an actor who had seamlessly bridged both popular culture and profound artistic expression. Lonsdale's career spanned more than 6 decades, and he was admired for his versatility. To international audiences, he was perhaps best known as Hugo Drax, the villain in the James Bond film Moonraker, 1979, while cinephiles revered his deeply spiritual role in Of Gods and Men, 2010, where he portrayed a Trappist monk in Algeria confronting violence with quiet faith. His passing from natural causes underscored the grace with which he had carried himself throughout his life. Eschewing scandal and spectacle, he embodied an older tradition of European actors for whom the craft itself was the legacy. The immediate consequence of his death was widespread tribute from both the French and international film communities. For France, Lonsdale was not just an actor but an institution, representing a bridge between high art and mainstream cinema. His death invited retrospectives on his work and renewed appreciation for his contemplative style, which contrasted sharply with the often fast-paced, celebrity-driven entertainment culture of the 21st century. His passing also amplified his legend. For many, his role in Of Gods and Men became a symbolic summation of his career, an artist concerned with questions of morality, mortality, and the human spirit. The film itself, dealing with martyrdom and faith, seemed eerily prescient in the wake of his death, cementing his reputation as an actor who engaged deeply with existential themes. Reflecting on Michael Lonsdale's death, reveals humanity's enduring fascination with figures who embody both artistic excellence and personal integrity. Mortality, in his case, does not diminish his impact but enriches it, reminding us that great art often outlives its creators. We immortalize such figures not only through film archives and tributes, but also through the values they represent: depth, reflection, and the courage to tell stories that probe the essence of being human. His legacy reminds us that memory is itself an act of art, one that allows voices like Lonsdale's to echo long after silence. Alice Ghostley, the beloved American character actress, passed away on September 21, 2007, at the age of 81 in Studio City, California. She died from colon cancer and a series of strokes, a natural decline that marked the end of a career spent delighting audiences with her quirky, witty, and often understated performances. Unlike the dramatic or tragic deaths that sometimes define celebrities, Ghostley's passing reflected the quieter reality of aging and illness, reminding us that even those who bring levity to millions are not immune to the frailties of the human body. Ghostley's career was defined by her ability to embody eccentric, humorous, and sometimes vulnerable characters. She became a household name for her roles as Esmeralda, the bumbling witch on Bewitched, and Bernice Clifton on Designing Women, where her sharp comedic timing won her an Emmy nomination. At a time when women in television were often confined to glamorous or stereotypical roles, Ghostley carved out a niche as a scene stealer who found dignity in the unconventional. Her death, therefore, symbolized not just the loss of a performer, but the passing of an era in television comedy when character actors gave texture to storytelling. The immediate consequences of her passing were heartfelt tributes from colleagues and fans alike. For many, her death spurred renewed appreciation of the vital role supporting actors play in shaping television history. While leads may command the spotlight, Ghostley's performances demonstrated how humor and humanity often reside in the margins of the script. Her passing did not shift global history, but it reinforced the cultural memory of a golden age of sitcoms that shaped American entertainment. Ghostley's legacy was amplified in the aftermath of her death as fans revisited her performances, finding comfort in her ability to make laughter a form of resilience. In this sense, her death served as a reminder of television's power to preserve memory. Episodes of Bewitched and Designing Women continue to circulate, keeping her presence alive. Ultimately, Alice Ghostley's departure illustrates humanity's relationship with mortality through humor. She showed that laughter is not frivolous but essential, a means of confronting life's fragility with grace. We immortalize her and others like her through reruns, retrospectives, and the joy of remembering the peculiar magic she brought to her roles. In doing so, memory becomes its own form of performance, an encore that never quite ends. Jacqueline Susann, one of the most commercially successful authors of the 20th century, died on September 21, 1974, at the age of 56 in New York City. Her death was the result of breast cancer, a disease she had battled privately for nearly a decade. In an era when cancer was still often discussed in hushed tones, Suzann's struggle reflected the challenges of women navigating both personal illness and professional ambition in a culture that often discouraged frank conversations about mortality and female health. Suzann was best known for her 1966 novel, Valley of the Dolls, which became a cultural phenomenon, selling millions of copies and sparking both adoration and controversy. At the time of her death, she was one of the first female authors to break into the realm of mass-market publishing with a distinctively female-centered narrative. Her characters, caught in cycles of ambition, fame, addiction, and love, mirrored the struggles of women in a rapidly changing society. Her passing at a relatively young age was a reminder of the human cost of illness at a time when treatment options were limited and stigmas surrounding women's health remained strong. The immediate consequence of her death was a wave of mourning among fans who had found in her work a rare voice that spoke openly about sex, power, and vulnerability. Critics may have dismissed her books as pulp, but her readers elevated her to icon status, ensuring her influence extended well beyond her lifetime. Her death also underscored the cultural hunger for stories that confronted the often hidden struggles of women, paving the way for later authors who sought to balance commercial appeal with social commentary. In many ways, Susann's passing amplified her legend. She became a figure of both controversy and admiration, a woman who defied the literary establishment while commanding mass appeal. Her books continued to sell after her death, and film and television adaptations kept her name alive in popular culture. Ultimately, Jacqueline Susann's death highlights how mortality intersects with cultural memory. While her illness was private, her legacy was public, and it revealed the power of literature to speak to the unspoken desires and pains of its time. We immortalize her not only through her best-selling novels, but also through the conversations she forced into the open about women, fame, and the hidden costs of success. Diana Sands, a trailblazing African-American actress celebrated for her raw talent and authenticity, died tragically young on September 21, 1973, at the age of 39. Her death was caused by leiomyosarcoma, a rare form of cancer. Sands had been preparing to star in the Broadway production of Raisin, the musical adaptation of Lorraine Hansberry's A Raisin in the Sun, but her illness forced her to step aside. This abrupt end to a promising career reflected the fragility of life in an era when opportunities for Black women in the entertainment industry were already scarce and fiercely contested. Sands had risen to prominence in Hansberry's groundbreaking play A Raisin in the Sun, 1959, where her performance as Beneatha Younger broke barriers for African-American actresses on Broadway. She went on to earn acclaim in both film and theater, including her work in The Owl and the Pussycat and The Landlord. At a time when the civil rights movement had heightened demands for representation and equality, Sands embodied the possibility of a new cultural landscape in which Black performers could thrive beyond stereotypes. Her death, therefore, was not only a personal tragedy, but also a cultural loss that underscored how fragile progress could feel for marginalized voices. The immediate consequence of Sands's passing was a profound sense of absence within the theater and film communities. Colleagues mourned the loss of a woman whose artistry promised to reshape American performance. The fact that she was set to take on the role of Lena Younger in Raisin added poignancy. The production had to move forward without her, serving as a painful reminder of unrealized potential. Sands's death, however, also amplified her legend. She became emblematic of both artistic brilliance and the cruel brevity of life, her name forever tied to the cultural shift that A Raisin in the Sun represented. In this way, her legacy parallels other artists whose early deaths magnified their significance, cementing them as icons of what might have been. Her passing reminds us of humanity's complex relationship with mortality and memory. We immortalize Sands not only through revivals of Hansberry's work, but also through the recognition of her influence on later generations of Black actresses. She lives on in the art she helped pioneer, a symbol of both progress and the unfinished work of equality in American theater. Publius Virgilius Maro, known simply as Virgil, died in 19 BCE at the port city of Brundisium while returning from a journey to Greece. Accounts suggest that he became gravely ill, possibly from sunstroke or infection, and passed away at the age of 50. His death, though natural, resonated deeply within the Roman world, for he was not just a poet, but the voice that articulated Rome's sense of destiny. Virgil had been composing the Aeneid, an epic designed to glorify Rome's origins and Augustus's reign. With his passing, the poem remained unfinished, though nearly complete. According to tradition, Virgil wished for the manuscript to be burned, fearing it unpolished, but Augustus overruled him, ensuring the Aeneid would survive as Rome's national epic. The timing and nature of his death mirrored the tensions of his era. Rome was emerging from decades of civil war into a new age of imperial stability under Augustus. Virgil's writing sought to balance personal artistic expression with political duty, a challenge emblematic of his generation. His illness and untimely passing emphasized the fragility of human life, even for figures bound to imperial favor. The Aeneid's survival, preserved against his own wishes, became both a reflection of Rome's emphasis on collective destiny over individual will and a statement on how art often outlives its creator's anxieties. The immediate consequence of his death was a sense of cultural loss. Virgil had become the literary symbol of Rome's golden age. His passing froze his reputation in time, amplifying his legend. For centuries afterward, his works were studied as moral and cultural guides. In the Middle Ages, Virgil was even reimagined as a prophet who had foreseen the birth of Christ, and later, Dante immortalized him as the guide through the Inferno in the Divine Comedy. Virgil's death reminds us how mortality intersects with legacy. Power and political structures fade, but art and storytelling endure. Humanity immortalizes such figures by weaving their voices into literature, education, and cultural memory. Virgil's life ended by illness, yet his words became timeless, offering insight into Rome's ideals and, by extension, humanity's eternal quest for meaning and belonging.